All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this regular scheduled meeting to order. Just as a role, we currently do not have member Gavin Johnson today, but we do have a quorum with 4. And with our new member, Mr. Donald Long. Welcome aboard. With that being said, I want a motion to see if we have a motion for approval of the agenda as published.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public comment on the agenda as published. This is just on the agenda. No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Mr. Long, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, we have one last minute announcement. The City Commission approved paying the Planning and Zoning Board members $50 a month if they attend the meetings. You have to attend. I don't know if that's if there's a special meeting that would increase, but it's $50 a month for attending the meetings. Make sure you complete your W-9 and give it to Janine. If you want your payment auto-deposited, please also complete the EFT form. Is that it? Good? All right. All right, with that being said, consent agenda. All right, the consent agenda, August 2nd, Planning and Zoning Board meeting minutes. Do we have a moment to review those minutes?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of the minutes? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, that's unanimous. All right, and we'll go ahead and move into public hearings and ordinance. With that being said, we turn into a legislative body at this point. We do have several hearings here. We're going to go ahead and read into the record the ordinance, the resolution by title number, or the applicant's name, file number, the subject matter to be decided if there is no ordinance or resolution.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Before you ask the attorney to read the first one, I just want to remind the board that with attorney approval, we're going to go through the quasi-judicial procedure one time. As long as nobody new enters the room, then you won't need to go through this again, and we'll ask staff to help make sure that if anyone new enters the room, that you make the chair aware. Mr. Chair, go ahead.
With that being said, I'm going to explain the rules concerning testimony. And all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. All right, and Madam Attorney, if you can read into record ordinance 2021. Ordinance 2021-29, CPA 2113.
I'm sorry. This is ordinance 2021-29/CPA 21-13, an application by the city of Newberry to amend the future land use plan map of the comprehensive plan by changing the future land use classification from Alachua County rural/agriculture to city of Newberry agriculture on property previously voluntarily annexed to the city, identified by Alachua County parcel numbers 01861-001-001, 01861-001-000, and 1858-000-000.
All right, thank you. And All right, Janine, can you swear everybody in that's going to speak?
And ladies and gentlemen, just for efficiency of time, no matter which agenda, quasi-judicial you're here to speak to, if you're going to speak to any of them tonight, go ahead and stand up. If you're not sure if you're going to swear in, go ahead and swear in. That way, if you go to talk, it'll all be done, and we can just go right on with the conversation.
Okay, I'm going to need to get names for the minutes if they swear in. So if you think you need to be sworn in. I'm speaking. Yeah, okay. I'm going to start with over here with names, but would everybody raise your right hand that thinks you're going to speak in any way, shape, or form?
Sierra's going to take down names for us.
Okay. And say, I solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, we've got Wendy WBKF for the minutes, BST for the minutes, Jim Fleming,
Muriel Turner.
Muriel Turner,
Colin Spade.
Helen McIntosh. Helen McIntosh.
Helen McIntosh. We got the Hoffmans, Teresa and Joe, Andrew Fuller.
You guys got to have written instructions on this.
Thanks.
All right, so I just asked for expertise. All right, at this moment, I'll ask the board if anybody's had any ex parte communications on any of the agenda items. Ms. Woodcock?
No.
Mr. Wood?
No.
Long, sorry.
No.
I have not. All right, and with that being said, I'm going to run down the presentation order, and that way everybody knows how the order will work on this. So we're going to start with a staff overview. After the staff overview, we'll have an applicant present their application. There is no time limit on the application. The staff report and recommendation, there will be no time limit on that. Then we'll ask if there's any third-party interveners with no time limit. At which point we'll ask for public comments. The public comments we limit to 3 minutes. The intervener representing 3 or more persons attending the meeting to speak for the group, that will be limited to 5. At that point, the applicant may cross-examine. The party interveners may then cross-examine them. Staff may cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body, through the chair, may ask questions of the staff, applicant, party interveners, and the participants. Final arguments may be made by the applicant, party interveners, and then staff, related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record. City attorney will advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. Deliberation of the application after deliberations of vote shall be taken to approve with conditions, continue, or to deny the application. All right, and we have not been contacted by anybody that wishes to be a third-party intervener at this time. So with that being said, we'll move on to staff overview.
Good evening. We're ready to start. So this is an application that's going to go through the future land use map change process. So this is on previously annexed property. This is the process where we go through, once it's annexed into the city, then we go through the change to the future land use map of the city of Newberry's comprehensive plan, and then to the rezoning, which implements the comprehensive plan designation. So in this first application, in this location of the property, there's 3 parcels that totals about 237 acres, and it's going from the county's rural agriculture designation to the city's agricultural designation. So it changes just from the county to the city, but it's essentially the same thing, allowing the 1 unit per 5 acres maximum, and same types of uses. So the actual recommendation is for approval of the application, Ordinance 2021-29 for CPA 21-13.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, one of them is.
Would you like to speak on the matter, or no?
Unnecessary.
All right, move on to staff report recommendations. All right, do we have any public comment on? Nope. All right,
This one is just on ordinance 2021-29, so if you're not here to speak to that one.
Geographically, is that around where my nursery is? Or no?
No, hang on.
Okay, because I understand that property
Hey.
was just sold.
Yeah, hang on one. And we'll need to come up to the podium, so to make sure we know which one we're talking about. Okay, so if you have a public comment on ordinance 2021-29.
no. All right, at this point, we can cross-examine. The applicant doesn't want to cross-examine.
Great to be in the city.
It was pretty quick and easy on this one. Staff doesn't want to cross them. All right, members of the decision body, do you have any questions for staff on the topic? No? All right, and final argument may be made? Nope. All right, city attorney, will you advise the decision-making body of the factual findings and that must be made to approve or deny the application?
Mr. Chair, substantial and competent evidence is required.
Thank you. All right, any deliberations? No? All right, this is gonna be the easiest one we've ever done. All right, so at this moment, I'll take a motion to approve. Is that correct? We need a motion on this to approve?
Go ahead. I lost the number. I recommend we approve the draft ordinance 2021-29/CPA 2113.
I have a motion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. We get public comments or questions on the motion? Public comments or questions on the motion? All right, with that being said, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. If I'm not mistaken, agenda item number 3 is a duplicate of, it is, correct?
It should say CPA.
It's attached, yes.
I'm sorry, it should say LDR 2021-21. It's the zoning, not the future land use, for the same piece of property.
Okay.
So we'll correct that scrivener's error. Because mine says CPA also, but this is the same one, it's just, so we've already sworn in, we've already done ex parte on this. We just need the attorney to read this one in, and we'll stay in quasi judicial.
Correct.
This is ordinance 2021-29 LDR 21-21, an application by the city of Newberry to amend the future land use
Hang on
plan map.
One second, is that?
30, excuse
Okay.
me. This is ordinance 2021-30 LDR 21-21, a rezoning of previously annexed property from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Newberry Agriculture.
So this is the application that would actually rezone the property. So remember, once you change your future land use, you need to change your zoning to implement that comprehensive plan land use designation. Because this is a larger piece of property, keep in mind that it goes to the state for their review of the comprehensive plan amendment. So when you schedule the public hearings for the rezoning, it's contingent upon the plan amendment being approved. So in this case, this request to change the zoning would go before you for you to recommend to the city commission the approval of this application. It's contingent upon your plan amendment, the CPA that you just heard. The same location of the property up in the northeast area, You can see that this is about 238 acres. Again, it's rezoning from the county's designation of agriculture to the city designation of agricultural zoning. The recommendation is to recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-30 for LDR 21-21.
All right, now I ask the applicant again if you have any presentation.
Great to be in the city.
All right. Sorry, I just got to go through the motions to be on the record that we did.
I understand.
All right, do we have any public comment on the ordinance on the floor? All right, hearing none. We don't have any interveners. Applicant may cross-examine, which doesn't sound like he will. Staff may cross-examine. There's no cross-examination. All right. Dice, do we have any discussion on the? All right, and any final arguments from the applicant? None? All right, or any final arguments from staff? Negative? All right, city attorney, would you please advise to the applicable findings?
And once the city attorney has advised the board of substantial, you don't have to do it every single time because we're going to stay in the
So we're
same
good.
quasi judicial. Unless someone else new enters, then we go through it all again.
All right. Deliberations? None. All right, now I'll ask for a motion of the ordinance.
So move to recommend approval of draft ordinance 2021-30 LDR 21-21.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All right, do we have any comments on the motion on the floor? No? Any public comment on the motion on the floor? Negative? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to item number 4, request to change future land use. Staff, do we have? Oh, I'm sorry, attorney. Read the ordinance.
This is ordinance number 2021-31, CPA 21-11, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of section 163-3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 01924-002-000, consisting of approximately 3.67 acres, providing severability, repealing all other ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Just for the record, I believe on our packet, we're just missing the statement of ordinance 2021-31. It just says CPA 2111.
But we're still on
But
track.
we're still okay. Right? All right. You guys are good? You know we're on this side? Okay.
So this is an application by Andrew Fuller, who's agent for Intellectual Partners, LLC, who's purchased this property or owns this property, to amend the future land use element to change the designation from agriculture to commercial. It's 3.67 acres. Plans involve consideration of moving the existing fence company that he has further to the west to this location, as well as that's just a consideration. It's also possible that there may be other types of commercial uses considered there, depending on how things go. It's a small piece, so it's going to be a small type of commercial use. The requested future land use designation of commercial is consistent with the mixture of surrounding future land use classifications, and also consistent with the State Road 26 corridor study and the community visioning that's been going on as far as the types of commercial uses that are envisioned out there. As well as the goals, objectives, and policies of your comprehensive plan. So the recommendation, the future land use map amendment goes through the comprehensive plan amendment process. This is called a small-scale plan amendment. Anything that's under 50 acres constitutes that. It doesn't have to go to the state for their review. So this is the first step, and then your next step will be to rezone the property, and there's also an associated development agreement with this application. So the location of the property, you can see on the south side of the Newberry Road. This is the change to commercial. You can see the corporate park and other commercial designations in the area. The recommendation is for approval, and that you would recommend to the City Commission approval of the ordinance. Now remember, there is a development agreement that you're going to discuss at your next item, and it is thought that the plan amendment and the rezoning would be based on having that development agreement in place. Technically, you could approve the comprehensive plan amendment and have that land use in place without approving zoning at this time to implement that comprehensive plan designation. So recommendation, though, is just for you to recommend to the City Commission approval of the change in land use, and that noting that there is a development agreement. Do you have any questions?
Linda? Oh.
Sure.
Can I speak now?
Oh, wait, we're not in
We are
questions
not
just
there
yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
Do we have the applicant?
Don't leave, Wendy.
Would you like to take this moment to make a presentation?
No.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on the presentation? Please speak up to and state your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Muriel Gravely Turner. And I would just like to say that the property is west of Southwest 218th Street, not east of. But 218th Street is a privately owned road. And I'm not sure this is exactly the place that needs to be said, but I would like to be on the record that we do not want any commercial traffic on that road 218, because it is a privately owned road with no access to that property. Or the applicant would have no access to the property, I think is all. For 218. Does that compute? Does that?
No, I appreciate. Thank you for your comment. Do we have any other public comment on the?
Well, I can comment. I'm just saying, I think as the neighbors
Yeah, if you could just
down the
state
road, is that Jim Fleming, and I own the property to the west, but that road is only used by the residents of the road, and it's maintained by those residents. It's not paid for through the city or anybody else, those residents of the road, and I just don't think they want commercial traffic, that's all. So I would think such a said business would have their commercial traffic on Newberry Road. I own the nursery. None of our commercial traffic from the nursery, which is basically trucks coming to pick up plants, uses that road. It's not used. So that's the only comment I have.
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to speak to that? That would be helpful.
Just let's see if is there any other public comment on this? All right. Hearing none, the applicant can cross-examine at this point. Yeah, the applicant, if you want to cross-examine at this point, you may. If not, you good?
No.
No? Okay. Staff, you may cross-examine at this point.
Just wanted to make that point that yes, that is a private road, and if the applicant were to do anything with that road, he would have to work that out with the private property owners. So the intent at this time is not to have anything on that road, because that would be contingent upon them working something out. And if the private property owners were not amenable to that, it would not happen.
All right. All right, at this point, I'll ask the dais, you may ask questions of staff, the applicant. So now's our chance to go ahead.
Well, actually, now, I've forgotten what I was going to ask Wendy. There was something that you said, though, that I was confused about, the commission approval of the ordinance. Are what are we saying, us, tonight, right now? What are we trying to say?
So what this is a hearing before you to make a recommendation to the city commission. So as an advisory body, you hear this particular type of application, they all go before you as the Planning and Zoning Board, acting as a local planning agency, and you are making a recommendation to the city commission whether they should or shouldn't approve something, or any other comments or feedback you
Right, I
have.
understand that, but we're going from ag to commercial?
Ag to commercial.
That's
in the
correct, on the
future
3
land use
acres
map.
or 4,
Right,
whatever it is.
3.67 acres from agriculture to commercial future land use designation.
Okay. I don't know whether this comes up, I don't know who to ask this from, but apparently to move the fence company from where it is down to this piece of property, I guess to increase the size of the fence company. I'm not sure what the purpose is of that. But somewhere in there it was mentioned that maybe the fence company would come there to operate as a commercial entity, but maybe there would be once that's approved, then anything could come in, because it's now just overall commercial. And one more, and then I'll let you go. I'm not sure at all about codes that we have already established along Newberry Road, going from here to, say, Dudley Farm. That whole area there is open for commercial or use or whatever. And one big concern with this place is the daycare center that's right there, with the little kids being there all day and getting in and off of Highway 26 there. So it's just a thought. But I'm concerned about the fact that we don't have, once we say commercial, they could put in, I don't know what they'd want to put in, but it could be whatever, a gas station.
Well, to your point about the commercial type of uses and what can go there, when you change your future land use designation, that puts everybody on notice that you're going to eventually have some commercial there. So that's the first consideration. Do you want commercial in that location? And the recommendation is for that, but that's because it's based on the community visioning and what's been discussed and the type of development that's been discussed with the commission of what they would like to see of the commercial corridor, that kind of thing. It's not in stone. It's so the question before you is, do you think commercial is appropriate at this location? Then you go through and you rezone the property. So that's a general commercial, but you still got to get zoning that's going to implement that commercial land use category before they can do anything. And then they still go through site plan review and that kind of thing. But you have to have that zoning first. So once let's say you approve, you say, okay, maybe in the future, we're putting everybody on notice it's going to be commercial. Okay, then when you go through your rezoning, then you would say, well, okay, what kind of zoning do we want? What kind of uses do we want? Is it commercial intensive, commercial general? So we'll go through that in another application.
Okay.
But
That's what I was
specifically,
asking.
when you were talking about specific types of, concerns about that, there is a development agreement which you will hear before you'll even look at that rezoning as far as the order on this agenda. And that development agreement is in your packet, and that has different requirements that the applicant would have to meet in the event that they were to put any commercial development there, whether it was the fence company or something else, as far as design considerations and water and sewer and that kind of thing. And that depends, it's based on what's anticipated with the visioning, and knowing that some design regulations are going to come out of that. That's what this development agreement is, to say that we're going to have some kind of requirements now. If you want to go ahead before that, all of those regulations are put into force and developed and put into, or adopted. So we have to wait on that. And the same thing with water and sewer, making sure that if you want to go ahead now, here's the way you can do it, but you have to agree to do all these things. That's the next item.
Okay.
Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I have one other, sorry,
No, you're fine, please.
for our mayor, This is a question. I have not been up to city commission meetings. I will say I've not been, but has the commission considered or already approved or whatever that corridor from my driveway all the way to Tioga or wherever, Dudley Farm, is being considered as a corridor for commercial intensive development?
I would say that's been our primary consideration, is that corridor, and how do we protect some amount of green space between us and Gainesville, so that, you know, when you've left Gainesville, you've entered Jonesville, left Jonesville, drive through some countryside, and then come in to the city of Newberry. So that's been a driving force of all of our conversations.
But the commission as a whole has settled on the fact that we're just going to commercialize all the property on 26 headed from the traffic light east?
No, I would say that the exact opposite of that, right? So the conversations that the commission has had and what came out of the visioning session was a clear desire to think very strategically along that corridor about what kinds of commercial developments we want and how to protect some green space between us and Jonesville. Now, your driveway back, well, your driveway and a little bit down is clearly inside of our urban services area, which was created a long time ago. So for 30 years, maybe in Mr. Hoffman's time, we've had that as a targeted, we want to grow from the inside, from our core, outward in that urban services area. But outside of that urban services area, we want to try to have as much green space between us and everyone else as possible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do you have any other questions?
Hang on one second.
You need to go to the microphone.
Can I speak now?
You would have to come up to the microphone, state your name for the record.
Yeah, where are we? Are we in
We're in
deliberations?
discussion making board.
Discussion making.
Okay,
Okay.
asking questions of staff applicant.
Okay. Technically, we don't have public comment until after this.
But he's not public comment, he's applicant.
Right, but he waived his up here. So, chair's prerogative.
What's the prerogative?
Yeah. Wait for the chair to make a decision. I'd say yes.
Technically, so for future reference, the applicant, you had your chance to cross-examine. At this point, we're asking questions, but at this point, I will go ahead and give you the opportunity to raise your a question or
Yeah, and it's, I think this...
Can you state your name for the record, though?
My name is Andrew Fuller.
Okay.
And I'm the owner, or I'm the agent representing the property under discussion. And I wanted to just take this opportunity to address concerns of Mr. Hunt, and forgot your name here. I wanted to say that the proposed use of the land would be respectful of its neighbors and the rights. And we're not proposing to claim any rights with respect to any neighbor's land that we don't have access to. And of course, whatever future use of...
Hang on, one second, I'm sorry, sir. You will have an opportunity to make a final statement. This sounds more like a cross-examination. I want to make sure that we're being fair to the quasi-judicial process. So we're in a question and answer. Before these guys make a motion, you'll have the opportunity to make that comment. But do you have a question that you wanted to ask?
No, I don't have a question. This is
okay.
If I have an opportunity later on,
you will have an opportunity later on.
Okay.
When we sit in quasi-judicial, it's like we're sitting as a judicial body, and so we have to adhere to a certain set of rules. Not that anybody in this room right now is litigious, but they may come back later and say, well, wait a minute, out of order, you gave that guy the chance to,
Yeah, I thought you were having a question on what we were discussing, that's why.
Okay.
But as far as the statement,
we
you'll have an
will
opportunity.
keep that thought and bring it
I'll be back.
bring it right back when we get to the end.
All right, back to the board. Do we have more questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
2 more. sorry. I wanted to know, and this would be for Brian or Wendy, the daycare center is there and the nursery is there. That's two entirely different commercial activities. Are they just listed as commercial, period? Or is the nursery agriculture commercial, or how is the daycare listed? How do we figure this out? I know it's your job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the nursery is allowed by right in agricultural zoning district, which is where it's located in agriculture. Likewise, the daycare center, daycares can be allowed by special exception in a broad range of zoning districts, agricultural being one of them. And so they were, at some point in the history of the daycare, they were either brought in by special exception or grandfathered, possibly established under a different set of rules. But currently, right now, you can establish a daycare in residential, agricultural, or whatever, but it's all by special exception. As far as changing, you all might remember at some point in the past there was a request to rezone that property to commercial neighborhood, which was the recommendation was denied by the Planning and Zoning Board, and it didn't go any further than that. But as the corridor continues to develop outward, what you're looking at right now is your future land use map. You're not looking at the rezoning, which then specifies the type of uses that you can do in that property. It's just stating that the city foresees that at some point in the not too distant future, that property will ultimately turn into a commercial use along that corridor. And as to the mayor's point, based on the visioning sessions we've been having, everything, our urban services boundary ends at 202, and so we envision that corridor commercializing over time out to about 202, and then remaining green space to the east beyond that until you get out to Jonesville. And so allowing the future land use, it's basically in the comprehensive plan recognizing that we believe in the future the corridor is going to eventually commercialize. It allows for that, but it doesn't set the parameters. Later, when you then address the rezoning application and the development agreement that comes with that, that's where you get into the potential land uses that could be placed there. And then as far as the compatibility, you find daycares all over the place right next door to some fairly intensive uses. And so it would not be incompatible to have a commercial endeavor right next door to a commercial daycare.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Brian before he goes. Brian, do we have to do the land use before we do the development order? Because it seems like a lot of the decision. Sounds like a lot of the decision here is going to be based off of the development agreement. Why would we have that conversation before?
Mr. Chair, basically you're required to change the land use to commercial before you're allowed, because the land development regulations are the implementing arm of the comprehensive plan. You have to change the comprehensive plan first before you can then change the land development regulation, or the zoning district in this case, that would then allow the implementation of what you've changed in the comp plan.
And the development agreement, is that where we're going to have the opportunity to discuss an entrance and exit that would compel? Because I'm not sure exactly, even if you have an applicant who says, I won't use that road, I don't know what the remedy is if future, this person sells to the next person says, well, there's a road right there, I'm going to start coming in.
Mr. Chair, the road in question, to our knowledge, is privately owned and maintained and operated. Just because a road is adjacent to a property doesn't give that property legal rights, unless you get into things like prescriptive easement over time, which we're not talking about here. But just because it's there doesn't actually necessarily give them rights. And so that would actually be addressed after the rezoning process. That wouldn't be addressed in rezoning, that would be at the site plan. When they come in, they decide what they want to do with the property, they would decide the layout of it, they engage the engineer to draw up the plans, then it'll show their ingress and egress. Presumably, if they don't have legal rights to that roadway, their ingress and egress is solely going to be on Newberry Road. If they work out an arrangement of some sort with the owners and everybody's okay with it, legally, they have their documents signed and they've given some rights to it, then conceivably the site plan would incorporate a separate ingress and egress onto that road. Also, presumably, it would have to be improved back to Newberry Road, not just dirt or chip seal. So that would actually come at the site plan portion, but again, if they don't already have an existing legal right to ingress and egress, they'd have to work out an agreement with the owners.
All right, do we have any other questions? All right, do we have any deliberations? There's no deliberations, and we'll have an everything.
Okay, I make a motion for, I guess, for approval of ordinance 2021-31/CPA 21-11, contingent upon an executed development agreement.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions on the motion on the floor from the dais?
So I have some questions.
Good.
What's the difference in property size between where they're currently located and this new property?
You're asking where, you mean where Mr. Fuller has the fence company? He can respond to that for you, although remember, that is not, what you want to consider is whether commercial, period, all types of commercial under that district, under that land use category, and whatever district that you do, if zoning district. that went there. Keep
So
in mind.
one of the concerns I have about, while it is consistent with two other properties in the area, is right across the street and next to the daycare, there's a lot of traffic. And I am concerned with putting more of an ingress, egress close to where the rock trucks come off of the road right across the street and the daycare property, because it's already dangerous enough and people have been hit by those trucks that don't stop. And we're adding even more traffic so close to those roads.
That's not like a statement.
It is, I guess, a statement, not a question, sorry. So, yeah, it's a concern.
And Mr. Chair, I skipped a letter. So we missed final arguments, which was what I was telling you, sir, you should wait for. So if the board would indulge my apology and give the applicant a chance to make his final argument that I cut him off of, and then we'll continue with deliberations. So sir, now's your opportunity to come back up and address all of the conversation that you've heard here tonight and put people's concerns at ease if you can. Talk about how you're going to address those kinds of things.
Sure. My name is Andrew Fuller, and I think Brian did an excellent job of covering a lot of the things that I was going to express with respect to the process and how the land is going to be used. And to your point, right now you're saying what is the impact of additional traffic to and from that area that's close to the daycare? Well, it wouldn't be any more traffic than it is right now, which is about a quarter mile down the road. That's what we're saying. So to the extent that we did move the business there, it's a relatively low intensity ingress and egress of vehicles in terms of the number of vehicles that come and go at that property. But I think that should help ease your mind, certainly not the situation like the truckers on the other side with their coming from the park. I'm willing to answer any additional questions.
Well, at this point, I'll make a statement on the traffic. Yeah, we're closing up.
So we'll call you back up, sir.
So from what I'm seeing, I'm looking at this map right now. I see Greenfield, I see the nursery. But also right next to it, I see this huge parking lot that's an RV storage unit with tons of vehicles in it. I mean, I wish I would have came up with this idea because I would have made a fortune. Because at first, when the storage came in, we were all freaking out. I mean, this is just me as a comment on this subject. We were all freaking out because of, one, is it even gonna make money? Because who's storing stuff? Well, before you know it, it's sold out. Now that brings up the other concern. All these people with their boats, their RVs, their food trucks. So I personally feel that this section is, if I'm looking at this map correctly, this section is just as big, if not as the RV. I'm concerned with the traffic, yes, but I feel like kind of like the applicant. Whereas as long as he's respecting the private road, of what's being used, of the residents, he's being neighborly, which it sounds that he's, being truthful on that. I don't see that being such a huge concern, and especially with 202 being about a quarter mile down the road. How much?
202's a mile.
A mile? A mile down the road. So, I'll validate, I mean, there's a daycare there that concerns me, but then again, my daughter goes to the daycare right off of US 27 and people fly down that road. And there's definitely a lot of traffic down that road. And that's a 2-lane highway versus a 4-split highway that we're dealing with here. So that's just my comment on the traffic. I feel like if we're gonna put something commercial, this is somewhere where we would wanna consider it, because the highway is already available for, it's not, one-way traffic.
We're
Yes,
not,
ma'am.
but at this point, we're not approving the fence company
No,
to
we're
move
just-
there.
we're just approving commercial.
saying commercial is okay. Any kind of commercial that you want to do, it's okay. And that is a concern. It really is. So then we have to come back to another meeting to discuss if the gentleman wants to build I can't think of anything, a skating rink, I don't know, an ice skating rink.
That would be fun.
But it would, wouldn't it? It would, but then, all I'm saying is, we're basing this on the fence company moving in, which sounds wonderful, and I'm not concerned about it, but the whole thing is, once we open it to this, then we're pretty much going to have to deal with this issue. If he decides to sell it to another owner, and they want to do something different than a fence company, then there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, it is what it is, and we're growing, and this
Mr.
is
Chair.
a part of our life anymore, but just know that it's gonna come up again.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't disagree with the board member. I would simply point out that that's pretty much how this always happens.
That is,
You put the
right.
zoning first, and then sometimes people sit on zoning for 10 years before they ever come back and they say, okay, now I want to do X. So
Yeah,
basically what's
that's kind of
happening
what
here.
I was saying.
Right,
was,
we'll be back.
We will be back.
That's why we're paying you guys.
But we're getting paid. But next time, are we gonna get paid tonight, too?
We can all go to Stonehouse right after this.
It should go back to the first of the year.
So to the board, in respects to Mr. Long as well, that this is new to you on this. The concern that Member Woodcock brings up is a very validated point. However, I do want to stress that on page, I believe it's 151, the city does this pretty competent job of letting us know what would be permitted and what would be prohibited. So if there's a concern of, prohibited use, manufacturing activities except for a specifically permitted, off-site signs, warehousing or storage. So there is certain guidelines that even though we do approve it, there's still certain guidelines that they have to adhere to the commercial, according to what I'm reading. Is that correct, Ms. Staff?
Mr. Chair, that is correct, and if I may, because you're going to hear other rezoning requests this evening as well, and I just want to point out, State Road 26 is just that. It's a state road, and so it's actually jurisdictionally not in the city's purview as far as the traffic impacts. I mean, certainly we want to consider that, but ultimately, when this goes, say this parcel gets rezoned to a commercial category, and at some point in the future, the owner decides what they want to do with it, and they go in. As part of the site plan review, before that can actually be approved, they have to have a permit from FDOT for their ingress and egress. And the FDOT at that point is going to decide, is this an intensive enough use that it's over a threshold that it requires a traffic study? If yes, they're going to require the traffic study. The traffic study is going to outline the impacts. And then FDOT comes back and says, okay, the impacts are such that you do not need to make additional mitigating efforts on the roadway, or you do need to make mitigating. You might have to have a right turn lane, or they might decide at some point in the future that 186 is busy enough with the traffic you mentioned coming off the road that it's going to require some kind of signalization. But at that point, that's when that occurs, is when they actually come in with an application for specific development that they turn around and decide, based on the traffic studies and the actual numbers that they have available from that study, whether or not it's going to be enough of an impact that it's going to require any kind of mitigation or not.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. We also have a second. We went backwards to go forward. So we do have a motion on the floor. We also have a second. Do we have any other comments from the dais on the?
I have a question. So the road 218, if they give the permissions, the fencing company gets permission to access that road as an entryway or exit, and another company comes in, will that access still be allowed for another company for that access to that road?
Mr. Chair, I think it depends on the way that the agreement is written. So they could write an agreement that is only between the two parties, and this may be a better question for the attorney, but my understanding is it really depends on how the agreement is written. If they give the parcel number or the parcel number, if they give the parcel number access, then whoever owns that parcel number. If they give a person an agreement, that's a different thing. Is that, in essence, correct, Madam Attorney?
Yeah, that's essentially how that works.
She said it way better than I did.
Okay. She did. No. All right, we have a public comments on the motion on the floor. All right, hearing none. At this point, I'll go ahead and motions made. Do all those in favor saying aye? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's a reluctant aye, but okay. Motion passes. Huh? Unanimously. All right, we're moving on to. Now I'm lost. Are we going to? All right, Madam Attorney, will you read into the record
Well, this is a development agreement, so I don't know that we read development. That's not in our quasi judicial procedures. Yeah. So we're going to give you guys feedback on this agenda item. You tell us what's in the development agreement. You'll hear from these guys what they would recommend the commission would also consider putting in the development agreement. Why is the development agreement quasi judicial? I guess that's a question that Scott could answer since he just walked in the door.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't count now because he hasn't sworn in. He does not. He does not. Wendy, do you know why a development agreement would be seen as quasi judicial?
I can't remember.
A single parcel of property. So since it's refined to a parcel, then it would be quasi judicial.
So you're saying would be?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's why it's not shown, though. So now we all know. Okay, so we proceed that way. As a quasi judicial, then. It's
The
not.
question was, since we don't have, normally we read in resolutions, ordinances, development agreement, they have nothing to read into the record. So we're going to move past that. We still need to do ex parte to see if anybody has
have
talked to the
The
developer.
draft
We have a
development
draft.
agreement, which was advertised for that. That's all, right.
But we still need to do ex parte on this item.
Yes.
Go ahead and, any ex parte communication at this point, I'll ask the board. Ms. Woodcock? None?
No,
Mr. Long?
sorry.
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
I have none. All right, with that being said, staff overview.
So this application, being a development agreement, is between the city and the property owner. So, and it is specific in your draft agreement, I think that, I need my glasses. See this? But it is in your packet. I think it, the part that is item number 5, it begins, the agreement itself. You can look at that beginning on page 114. And that agreement takes you through the requirements that are being requested of the applicant, that was been discussed with the applicant. The property, again, same property we're dealing with on the south side of Newberry Road, just east of Southwest 218th Street. And it is associated with that rezoning application that you will hear after this, to rezone it to commercial intensive. And that's what this development agreement is basing that, the agreement upon it being rezoned to commercial intensive, because there's certain uses that are allowed in commercial intensive, and this is speaking to that as well. And so under the statute, it requires for your advertisement to specify certain things like dealing with the size of the property and the maximum height of buildings and floor area ratio. And those are things that are specified in your CI, commercial intensive zoning district. And that's where that's taken from. And in your development agreement, it references saying that the uses that are permitted are those that are allowed in the commercial intensive district. So the idea is, if you are adopting this development agreement first, ultimately that would be the idea, so that governs that zoning. When it gets rezoned, it still has to comply with the development agreement and everything in that zoning district. So the development agreement itself that you have before you, the draft, addresses compliance with design and landscaping requirements that are the result of the community visioning process, which those are development regulations about to be prepared as a result of the discussions. And it also requires connection to water prior to development and connection to wastewater when available as defined in the development agreement. And the proposed development agreement provides that necessary infrastructure based on a certain timing that needs to be done to make sure that everything's in place when that development happens. So again, the location of the property you can see outlined in blue. And so To enable this, the whole reason you're doing this is because to enable the property owner to move forward with their rezoning now, rather than wait till after all the development regulations are prepared and adopted that are resulting from that community visioning process. To go ahead is to say that here's a development agreement that in which you're going to, the applicant agrees with the city that they will comply with certain restrictions that are in line with those regulations that are going to be adopted based on what we've been discussing. So the agreement provides that commitment from the owner developer to comply with those requirements. And then in the event that when the regulations are actually adopted, if the developer hadn't developed the property, if the owner didn't develop until after those regulations finally were to get adopted, maybe they're several months down the road, or maybe they wait and develop a couple of years from now, and those regulations are in place, then those regulations are what prevails, because those would be actually the law at that time. But if they wanted to go ahead now, before those are adopted, that's why you have that. So the agreement addresses the uses in the CI district and also the signage and connection to wastewater and water. So I'm not sure. Okay, so if we go through the development agreement that you have in your packet, it does address that, making sure that you understand that site and development plan approval is required so that it's clear, and that the uses permitted are based on the commercial intensive zoning classification. And then it speaks to public facilities and saying, you know, that the city's going to provide the water and sewer, and that the applicant would have to connect to water, that they agree to potable water to the site prior to development, to connect to sanitary sewer within 12 months of it becoming available. And it's defined as within 800 feet of the property, regardless if the connection requires crossing city, county, or state highways. So and it discusses the type of connection and that you would need to do that. And that makes it so that the applicant, if they wanted to develop that property and extend that water and sewer to their property, they can always work out a pioneering agreement with other property owners to do something together, and so that when others connect to it, they can participate and pay into that toward what the applicant's provided. And then the main thing also, and then the design standards saying that until the new commercial corridor standards are adopted, that certain design requirements would be applicable to this development, and saying that renderings and facade elevations showing the proposed development design would be required. They'd have to submit that as part of site and development plan approval. And they would incorporate the Florida vernacular style of architecture in accordance with the city design regulations as they are in section 4.2.36.4 in your code. And then specifies that there's no corrugated metal siding facing the road, or not to have that in place at all. So that's, and then additional discussion saying that, a requirement saying that no self-storage facilities would be able to be visible to State Road 26. And then it goes through landscaping requirements, stating that they would have to have landscaping that's installed along the perimeter of the stormwater management, and that it's subject to the site and development plan application, and they have to incorporate those landscaping features. Now, I don't want to read all those requirements in, here that you have before you. I know you've been able to look at that yourself, but it does address specifically, the types of buffers and type of landscaping and the transitions, flowing transitions between buildings and land uses and adjacent properties. The use of native plants and existing vegetation, and that those would have to be maintained, and in the event of disease or damage, they would be replaced. And then stormwater management as well, and parking areas that where practical, that those uses will be incorporated as design features and located such that they would have stormwater management facilities between State Road 26 and the development, and any parking, if at all possible. And then signage, specifying that has to complement the overall design of the building, excuse me, and goes through those specifications, and that, and then specifically, as we said, if the application is submitted for site and development plan approval for the development, it's actually going to happen, then it's going to it can go through according to these regulations, but if it's submitted after adoption of those commercial corridor standards, then the adopted standards would apply. So there's one additional condition that the attorney has recommended also to add, and that would be, we have specific language for that would specify that, to make it clear to the applicant that the rezoning is you still have to comply with all the regulations. So in other words, if they sign this development agreement, it doesn't bind the city to do something, or they still have to follow all the regulations as far as the rezoning aspect. So specifically, let me see. So in other words, notwithstanding any prior agreement, so if you did this development agreement or anything, that the developer understands that the rezoning process is subject to all city ordinances and regulations, and that the developer understands and concedes that the city will not and cannot, by law, waive the requirements governing the rezoning process. So it's just a legal addition that needs to be specified in their agreement. So we would recommend that you would include that in your motion without having to specify all that language. So rather than, that's plenty. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. We can work together through something if you have any.
All right. Thank you, staff, for that. Applicant can present their application at this time.
Nothing in addition.
Nothing in addition. All right, public comments. We got 3 minutes for public comment.
Okay, can you go back to that first screen that she had on?
Yeah, if you could just come back over.
Come back to the podium, sir.
Keep going back.
Go back to-
Keep going back.
All right, that's the first one.
No, because it's the verbiage
Okay.
on your, it says right here, located on the south, we are west of where my nursery is right now. So we're actually sitting west of 218th Street. Right there it says located on the south side of West Newberry Road, east of 218. So there's a
That's
typographical
typo, yeah.
error, so you guys will need to, I just want to make sure that's
Thank you.
clarified.
It got fixed on some other stuff and didn't get fixed there. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
okay, I
appreciate
just,
it.
that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments? All right, hearing none. At this time, the applicant, you may cross-examine. This is your time to, no? All right, and staff, if you have any cross-examinations?
No, sir.
All right. And now the member of the dais. We can discuss, ask questions of staff. Any questions for staff? Don't be shy.
No, I understand.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, do what you were going?
No, you said no comment.
I think this is a question for either Wendy or Brian. So when water's already there, right, when wastewater is there, is the applicant compelled to work with everybody on that side of the road to get wastewater on the other side? Or is the city compelled to be the mediator between all the people who would like to get wastewater on that side? It seems unfair to ask one applicant to handle that,
Yeah.
and then everyone else gets to. But
Right.
it also seems unfair for that applicant to be put in the position of rounding up all of the commercial endeavors on that side. How's that gonna work?
Mr. Chair, at this point, there are no immediate plans to bring wastewater to that side of Newberry Road. And so one of the things that is allowed through the development agreement is that in consideration for allowing them to be rezoned to the commercial category at this time, until such time as wastewater is within 800 feet, including across the state highway of this particular development, then they can operate on a septic system.
But it
Once
will be 800 feet.
Yes, or once it becomes 800 feet, then they will be required to connect within 12 months of notification of availability. And so that either means that they would go under the road and potentially have a pioneering agreement. Most likely, there will be other entities along the corridor that also are going to develop at that point. And then, we've talked about they would group together maybe to share cost possibility of pioneering agreements where if they pay a certain amount up front, then they can be recouped over time as other businesses and residents even connect to that. And so those kind of details, because everything is unknown at this point, will be worked out in the future. But it's not likely that a particular small-scale development like this would be required to bring wastewater, to bear the full cost of bringing wastewater under the highway, the state highway. Most likely it would be when even if it technically is available, it might be that, when there's a couple of entities or more together, we'd work out something between them and the city, because the city also has an interest in bringing wastewater under as well, and we'd probably participate in upsizing and that kind of thing, and so share some cost.
But this language compels, and we don't have another agreement with any of the other commercial developments, because we don't have this on the storage facility, right? So
Correct,
this would be
but-
the only business that is compelled within 12 months of notification to hook in.
It's essentially the same language we used when we approved the special exception for DCC Church. Within a 12-month period of notification that's within 800 feet, that they would also connect. And there's other property owners in the general vicinity of this parcel that have also expressed interest in rezoning or developing property they already have, and they would be required to connect to wastewater when it's within, we would basically be presenting the same development agreement.
Okay, I guess my question, I don't want to hold up this project, because I agree with the zoning, but I don't, and it may not be, in my mind, it's got to be a pretty hefty price tag to run the sewer underneath Newberry Road, all 4 lanes. So if there's only one who's really compelled to do it, then every other property next to him is going to say, well, I'm just going to wait for you to do it, right? And then, maybe I'll sign a pioneering agreement, maybe I agree to that or not. And it also seems like the city might want to take a more active role in deciding the best place to cross to get sewer on the other side, and maybe that parcel isn't for this applicant to say, I'm just running it to the closest point that I have to run it. That may not be where we want it. So I think that there may be some conversation between now and before this gets to the commission about where's the best, cheapest, most efficient place to cross that sewer line under to get it onto the south side. And it may be not directly to this property owner, but then it might give everybody a chance. Because the only thing that's different about what we did with DCC is all those people are on that side. So I'm pretty much just hooking into my section, right? On this one, I have to run it under the road, and then I have to hook into my section.
Mr. Chair, to the mayor's point, that's basically correct. The anticipation is that it will go under the road. But you're absolutely correct in that it may not be the most efficient place to put it in front of this particular property, and it might be further east or it might be further west, and then the connections would be extended from those points instead. And those considerations are being
Can be worked
discussed.
out later.
Yes.
I just want to make sure the applicant is aware of those considerations, because if the place to cross is a quarter mile, well, that would be a lot of pipe to run back to get to his property. I'm sure we can work all of these details out, but would be what if I was sitting in his seat, that's what I would be questioning right now.
Yes, sir.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Does Dias have any other questions?
No.
No. All right, hearing none. At this point, final argument may be made by the applicant. You have any final arguments?
Yes. First of all,
We got folks watching at home. They want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, where's the camera? I'm Andrew Fuller, and I do appreciate the questions, Mr. Mayor, that with respect to the wastewater, because in our development agreement, or the discussion around the development agreement, we talked a lot about the city water supply, but not the wastewater. That's a big deal, obviously. And I would like to have the development agreement not require such a small development, as you point out, bear the responsibility of bringing wastewater across the State Road 26. So it's a draft development agreement right now, and we do have the opportunity to talk about some of the language. but I do appreciate that point. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Chair, just so I can clarify, I would recommend leaving it in for now, and let's let staff and the applicant work on it before it gets to the commission.
Right.
Because I do think that eventually we're gonna have to say, somebody's gotta get it over. So I don't think that this applicant should bear that cost as 100%, but I do think that we need something structurally in, because right now, I do not want to end up with a bunch of commercial business on the south side of 26 running off a septic, with all of them claiming, well, it's not my job to run it over, so you guys run it over, and then, so I just give staff and the applicant a little bit of chance to work it out.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What's the requirement for a commercial company to run it over?
The financial requirement, or,
Well, I'm just saying, if you're saying that that applicant wouldn't want to bear the responsibility, then who would, and what company, or what commercial company would?
I think that's the question that I'm wanting to figure out. What staff is talking about, what we did with DCC, was the city paid the whole thing up front, and then we had an upfront agreement with all the property owners along the way that when they connected in, they would pay the city back their proportional share. So there may be an opportunity for us to do something similar here, where we say, we want to get it onto that side. We'll bear some of the upfront cost, but we have a pioneer agreement, and then we get back our proportional share from everyone for what they put in. So if we do it that way, then the city could say, okay, this is the best, most feasible place for us to cross. I have no idea how much that costs. Let's just say $100,000. Just throwing that out. So we pay the $100,000 to get it over, and then this property is a quarter mile, and he needs a quarter mile of pipe to get there. This property is a tenth of a mile. They need a tenth of a mile to get there. And everybody then pays what they need plus a proportional share of what it costs to get under the road. And so the city would get its money back eventually. And that's with a thought for when we were getting it down to DCC, was this is going to help spur that commercial development. Our tax base for commercial development needs to grow. We have a lot of tax base for residential development, but we need that commercial development, so it was a way for the city to help try to spur some of that. So I would have the same philosophy here. I'm just a little bit worried about the wording being so precise on one small commercial development, because the city could certainly not notify that sewer was there until we had a plan. So maybe we just wait sending that 12-month letter until we have these things figured out. But I'd like them to have that conversation before they sign on the dotted line, because the way I read it right now, as soon as wastewater's there, they're on a 12-month clock to put it under the road without necessarily getting all the other commercial developments on the south side of the road in on that agreement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't know if you were about to say something.
Mr. Chair, there probably will be a domino effect on this. Once we covenant originally with USDA in putting in our sewer system that within a certain number of feet, each property owner has to connect to the sewer system. When we started our sewer system in Newberry, that was the requirement for residential and commercial. That's how we expanded our system, and we covenant with our funding source to do that, and that's in our ordinances. The likelihood of what will happen here is exactly what the mayor just said. Once you jack and bore under the road and connect with this property owner, then this property owner is going to have to, and on and on and on. So the commercial development, it will probably be almost like a domino effect. Once the sewer system is available, the likelihood also is that the city will say, look, we need to upsize this line, and the city will participate in some financial fashion so that we have a larger service line that will accommodate a number of those owners over in that side. So I think the mayor is exactly right. It's really uncertain at this stage as to what's going to happen but the development community is covenanting with us that they will participate in that process. But it won't just serve one owner, it's going to serve probably many, many owners over there.
Thank you. All right, any final arguments from staff? No? All right, with that being said, city attorney, aren't we already advised on that? Deliberation of the application. Do you have anything to discuss as a board? All right, go ahead and entertain a motion.
That was two quasi judicials ago. Need you one more time.
Okay, make another motion. I'm getting good at this. I recommend, okay, approval of development agreement DALDR 21-18.
Got a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Did you get it? I did not, I was not, did you get it? Okay.
I have a motion, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. At this point, do we have any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. We are going to recess for 5 minutes to take a bathroom break, water break, as you see fit, but we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Do I have to do this thing? 5 minutes.
This is finished 5, right? So we're now
Yeah, we're on number
moving
6.
6.
All right, 5-minute break.
Oh, that's got a mess here. That's terrible. I was on a 5-year-old.
Hang on. You're still alive.
Oh, my God.
I'd be interested.
I know.
So close to making it, it's just right on the edge. And then I just started, you know, the
Yes.
big raindrops started coming.
Lower throttle earlier, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lower throttle earlier.
Yeah.
Everyone's muted, hold on.
If we get out of here before midnight tonight.
And you're on screen.
Wait, are we going to zone house after this? Is that what you're saying?
I was gonna offer to tell y'all a story about each of these people who I know. Most of them I grew up with, and I can tell good.
Yeah. All right, are we live?
I'm
All
not.
right. All right, we are live and we are back in session. All right, welcome back. We are on item number 6, rezoning from agriculture to commercial intensive. Want to go ahead and have the city attorney read into ordinance. I'm sorry, 2021-32.
Happy to do so, Mr. Chair. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of official zoning atlas for the rezoning of approximately 3.67 acres, amending the official zoning atlas for the City of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from agricultural A zoning district to commercial intensive zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 01924-000-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is pass the ordinance as read by title only.
Thank you, City
Yes, sir.
Attorney. Staff overview. Is this all the same applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the rezoning part of the process. So the application, again, same property, same location, same owners, same situation. But the request here is for the commercial intensive zoning district to implement that commercial land use designation that you just recommended for approval. So the CI zoning district actually is one of the districts that can implement that land use category, and it would be compatible with the existing and planned commercial uses along State Road 26. The amendment process, again, once that plan amendment is adopted, then you're able to adopt your rezoning. So it is contingent upon the future land use map change as well and goes through the public hearing process. So again, the application, same place. We won't belabor that. But well, wait a minute. Let me go back. So this is a zoning map showing you the location of the zoning in the area. So you request us to go to commercial intensive. Now originally, well, for commercial intensive, so you've got the property outlined in blue. You see that there's some commercial general in the area and commercial neighborhood. There is that related development agreement that we just discussed, and that the recommendation for the approval of the rezoning is contingent upon that development agreement, and also all contingent upon the approval of the plan amendments. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Does the applicant have a presentation? No. No. All right, public comments on the ordinance on the floor. Hearing none. At this moment, the applicant may cross-examine. Negative. And staff may cross-examine. None. All right, guys, it's on us. Any questions for the applicant? Any questions for staff? Now's your chance to forever hold your peace. All right, hearing none. We'll move into final arguments maybe made by the applicant or staff. All right, city attorney, will you advise, or we already did that, deliberation of the applicant? Do we have any questions for ourselves? All right, hearing none, do I entertain a motion? Do we have a motion? We're just passing the torch.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-32, LDR 21-18, contingent on the approved development agreement.
Motion on the floor, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second from Member Long. All right, any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, All those in favor signify by saying, oh, public comment on the motion on the floor? Thank you. All right, no questions. The motion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's keep it moving. Number 7. City Attorney, can you read into, we have CPA 2115, that's all I have. I don't have ordinance. 2021 dash 50. If you could read ordinance 2021-50 into the record.
Sure, this is ordinance number 2021-50, CPA 21-15, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of section 163-3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 01923-005-000 and 01923-005-001, consisting of approximately 18.48 total acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
All right. Thank you, Madam Attorney. Staff overview.
The application is a request by Joseph, it's an application. See, we have a ditto typo. The That's right. It's an application by Joseph and Teresa Hoffman for the owners to amend the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change from agriculture to commercial. The property is on 18.48 acres approximately and located along West Newberry Road. Requested future land use change is consistent with the mixture of commercial and other types of uses in the area, along with the State Road 26 corridor study and community visioning, as well as the goals and objectives and policies in our comprehensive plan. This is the same type of request as you just heard for the Fuller property. This is the first step of that process. Once you have a request for future land use change, you're going to change your comprehensive plan. This is a small-scale amendment, so it does not require going to the state for their review. So this is the first step. The next step is your rezoning, which is another application. The property shows you, you can see the location and the types of uses that are out there now. This is the existing future land use designations and the zoning. So the parcels, the request is to go from agriculture to commercial future land use. And the recommendation of staff is for approval and understanding that there is a development agreement that's also being discussed following this.
All right, thank you. Applicant, do you have any presentation for us? Please state your name for the record.
Joe Hoffman, owner of the property. I would just like to say this goes back probably 20 years when I first sat on the commission, and we had conversations about how we wanted to see Newberry develop, mostly as a family-oriented type community, and I think we've done that up until this point. We created the park at Easton. We created Newberry's baseball park complex. And I think we're trying to stay within that parameters, but we need more businesses right now. We have a lot of residential customers that are new to the area, and a lot of the tax base is residential. We need more commercial development. I did sit in on the visioning process that we had a few months ago, and I think the emphasis was on Newberry Road, mostly because you're not sprawling out into the side roads, and I mean 2741 north and south, and then all of that traffic comes back into the city. You have a state road with 4 lanes, and as it was said before, DOT basically will tell you whether or not you're at capacity or whether or not you're creating too much traffic. So I think it's a good place for commercial development. And we've had quite a few inquiries to buy it. I had a physician's offices last year, and that's what started this process. I actually went for a lower zoning category, and the city asked me to hold off while they did the visioning process, so we've gone through that. And since that time, I've had some other developments wanting to come into that area, and most recently, a large hotel chain. So I think that's one of the things that we've always been trying to get to, and I think we're there. So that's why we're applying for this. Not necessarily that it will be a hotel, we haven't come to an agreement yet, but all of them have said we need to be commercially zoned before we're going to sign on the dotted line. So that's why we're here.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
No. Not at this moment, but we will definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have public comments on the ordinance on the floor. Hearing none. You may cross-examine at this point if you have anything against for staff. No? Staff, you may cross-examine? All right. And at this point, the dais, we may discuss, ask questions to staff, the applicant, as we see fit. No question. I'll just take a moment and say I didn't realize that you served on our commission before, so even though I was not a resident probably back then, I would like to take a moment and say thank you for your service on the commission. At this time, we are going to ask for any final arguments to be made by the applicant, by staff, if we have any. Hearing none. All right, the city attorney is already advised. And we're going to go ahead and we have any deliberation, any questions, concerns that we have as a dais? Go ahead.
No, I think it's consistent. It doesn't have the same concerns I had with the previous. And I think it's fine.
Okay. No? All right. With that being said, I will entertain a motion before we go to public comments on the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-50, CPA 20-15, contingent upon the executed development agreement.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a second from Member Long.
Mr. Chair, and Sarah, did we ask for ex parte on this agenda item? No? Can we do that quickly before we move forward?
Do we have any ex parte?
No.
Mr. Long?
No.
I don't. All right, just to put that on the record. Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. We do have a second. Do we have any comments or public comments on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to section number 8, public hearing on DLDR 2123. If we can have the attorney please read into.
This is another developer agreement, so I don't think we have anything to read.
Oh, we don't?
We'll just
Okay.
launch into the procedure.
Staff? Thank you.
This is the development agreement to go with the Hoffman's property that you just recommended approval on the plan amendment to change it to commercial. So this is based on the CI zoning district. The original request of the applicant was for commercial general. However, staff recommended that it be changed to commercial intensive, and that is what the development agreement is based on, as well as similar to the other development agreement you just heard. So the development agreements are the same and reflect the same requirements. So rather than go through them again, if that testimony would stand as far as the presentation on that development agreement, it does address the design and landscape requirements resulting from the community visioning and connection to water prior to development and connection to wastewater when available as defined in your development agreement. And this is to make sure that those improvements and design considerations are in place at the appropriate time. Again, the location of the property the development agreement, the reason why we're doing those, since it is ahead of the regulations that are to be adopted as a result of the community visioning, and to ensure that those things are in place at the right time. So the recommendation is to recommend to the City Commission approval of the development agreement, DA-LDR 2123.
Thank you. At this point, applicant may go ahead and, for the record, if you like.
I could make all the same comments as before, but the only thing I would like to add is the conversation that the mayor brought up earlier concerning connection to wastewater. So if they developed all of that property, they probably would be able to afford putting in that sewer line, depending on how large the city wants the sewer line running across there. So I would like to just, if we could negotiate, I don't want to hem them in an agreement that they may not like, but something that might be beneficial to the city and whoever it is that develops that property, and then have a shared cost agreement that anybody else that might need to tie into that line coming across could do, then do. So we can just take up that conversation later with staff.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would recommend the same thing for this one that we did for the last, is that we move forward right now so we don't slow anything down, but we make all the same comments to staff that we want to figure out how we're going to approach this. I don't think these are going to be the last two people who want to do commercial on the south side of Newberry Road. So I think we've just got to figure out exactly on staff side, how are we going to approach this in a fair and equitable way for everybody.
My question is, wouldn't it still hold it up if we don't have that agreement already in place for the other properties, even the current one that are speaking today and in the future? We don't have the wastewater addressed already.
I'm not quite sure I'm following. Are you saying
the agreement to bring in the pipeline to supply everybody's wastewater? If we don't have that already in place, so who's going to pay for what? Who's going to supply? Would that also slow down the development of the process?
I don't think it would, because we're a year out, if everything goes well, from getting the wastewater in. And then what we're recommending is a year from its completion. So if we start construction in a year, we're another 6 months, that's 18 months, and then they would have a year to figure that out. All I really care about is that we don't make the language in the developer's agreement so precise that there's no wiggle room for the first applicant, and they have to bear the whole cost and then wait to slowly get their money back. So I think we've got plenty of time to work this out. I just think we need to tweak the language so that it is being fair for everyone. And Brian may have an idea already of how to accomplish that.
Mr. Chair, a couple differences. Even though this is further east than where we already are with our wastewater provision right now, we already have in hand an application for a substantial residential and, well, mixed-use development that intends on developing commercial on the frontage on State Road 26 and residential behind it. And that development will be bringing water and wastewater into this area, so it'll be directly adjacent to these properties. So it's actually, and also the scale of these properties at almost 20 acres is substantially greater than a 3.67 acre parcel. And so the likelihood that they would be required to provide sewer either way is higher. But the point is that I won't say the plan is in place, but the sewer is coming adjacent to these properties sooner rather than later because of the development that's going to come in adjacent to it. And also, to Mr. Hoffman's point, if the city wanted to bring in, the applicant is only required to bring in the size lines for water or wastewater just big enough to serve whatever their development is. If the city wants to upsize that, then the city always takes on that responsibility and works out an agreement with the applicant to pay the additional costs for the upsizing. And so they would never be required to pay for more than they have to serve their development. So understand that.
Mr. Chair, on a peripheral point, this sounds like a really good, and I'm sure this is already happening, but I don't want to end up that we're just running sewer in different ways. So this is I think an opportune moment to bring Jamie into this conversation. If there's a way that we can have a loop here that serves everybody, then that would be the optimal
Just,
choice.
Mr. Chair, absolutely. Those discussions and plans and things are already in the works.
I'd love to hear that from staff, already in the works.
That's why they say it. They just say it because they know you love it.
It's true.
See?
It's so true.
All right, thank you very much, staff and the applicant. I guess at that time, well, we gotta do members' decision. Members' discussion. Any questions for staff, or the applicant? All right, hearing none. Final argument may be made by the applicant or staff. All right, moving on. Do we have any deliberation?
No.
All right, I'll move to, or let's hear a motion if we have one.
I'll make a motion for approval of development agreement DA-LDR 21-23.
Not everybody move at once here.
Second.
All right, do we have any comments on the motion on the floor? Public comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor by signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right, moving on. Number 9. Getting there. Madam Attorney, if you can read into the record ordinance 2021-51, LDR 21-23.
Mr. Chair, this is ordinance number 2021-51, LDR 21-23, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of approximately 18.48 total acres, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from agricultural zoning district to commercial intensive zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel 01923-005-000 and 01923-005-001, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. All right, staff, let's do this. It's like
Okay.
repeat mode.
So this is the rezoning part of the process. Request is for commercial intensive zoning, which also includes the commercial general zoning uses as well. And the plan amendment process, this is your rezoning that will implement your comprehensive plan, the amendment to the future land use element, and the location again on the south side of West Newberry Road on 18.48 acres. The development agreement that you just discussed, this is contingent upon that. And the recommendation of staff is to recommend to the City Commission approval of ordinance 2021-51 for the application LDR 2123, but that's contingent upon the development agreement and also contingent upon the approval of the future land use amendment.
Thank you very much. All right, applicant, do you have anything to, no? All right, and public comments? Hearing none. The applicant could cross-examine. Staff, cross-examine. All right, and Dias, we have any questions for staff or the applicant?
No.
No. No. All right, hearing none, do we have any final arguments? All right, and I guess we're not gonna, are we gonna deliberate on this one? No? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-51, LDR 21-23, contingent upon an approved development agreement.
I got a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
I got a second. Any comments on the motion on the floor from Dias? Anything from public on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much. We are on number 10.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before you move on to number 10, I just wanted to thank the Hoppins they called me up, I don't know, a long time ago and talked about a rezoning potential before we had started the visioning. And I know that after that conversation, the city reached out and said, well, Hank, could we wait a little bit? I really appreciate that flexibility. I hope that this ended up being a better result than what we had conceived of before, but it's that kind of patience and service to the community that we've always loved about you and your family, so thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, number 10, Madam Attorney, if you can read into ordinance 2021-52, CPA 21-16.
Mr. Chair, this is ordinance number 2021-52, CPA 21-16, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the small-scale amendment provisions of section 163-3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural/agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling per 5 acres to City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, parcel number 01834-003-000 and 01834-006-000, consisting of approximately 40.3 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Staff overview.
Mr. Chair, this is an application to change the future land use map. This is one of several applications that you're hearing tonight, and the subject property up by Northwest 46th Avenue. This is property that was annexed into the city back in July of this year, and the next steps of that process is to change your future land use map designation as well as your rezoning, zoning map. This is the first step. It's a small-scale plan amendment because it's under 50 acres and it would not have to go to the state. The location of the property is shown on the map here. It's the 40.3 acres, 2 parcels, located about a quarter of a mile south of Northwest 46th Avenue, a little bit less than a mile east of Northwest 298th Street. Recommendation of staff is for you to recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-52, approving CPA 2116 to provide for the change from county rural agriculture to city agriculture future land use designation.
Thank you, staff. Do we have the applicant present? No. All right, this is going to be...
She did let us know that she would not be able to be here, but she had no concerns and was fine with staff's recommendation.
All right, so we have it on the record that the applicant has no concerns and is good news. So we'll go ahead and skip on through here. The public comments. Do we have any public comments on the ordinance? Hearing none. The applicant's not here. Staff, do you want to cross-examine the applicant after? All right. Dias, do we have any questions for staff at this point?
No.
No. No. All right. And any final arguments from staff? Negative. All right. Any deliberations? I will entertain a motion.
Also moved that we recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-52/CPA 2116.
Got a motion? Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right. Motion and second. Any comments on the motion on the floor? Any comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, briefly, if the commissioner or the council could do, or the board could do the ex parte portion of the question.
Do we have any ex parte communications on? None. No, none. None. All right, thank you. We gotta add that to this thing.
It's on there.
Oh my gosh, oh, before the staff overview. You guys are like, hey, start with number 6 and work your way down. Not go backwards and then come forward. All right. Yeah, thanks. All right, now we have a motion. We do have a second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimous. All right, look at that. Miss Linda, we're gonna get out of here before 9 o'clock, like you said.
We're
so.
still going to get paid, though.
What? We're still getting paid.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. We accept cash.
That would be better.
I was kind of favorable to the pound cake myself, but.
All right, we're on number 11, ordinance 2021-53, LDR 21-24. Madam Attorney, if you can read into the record.
Mr. Chair, this is ordinance number 2021-53, LDR 21-24, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 40.3 acres more or less pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from the Alachua County Agricultural Zoning District to City of Newberry Agricultural Zoning District on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. Tax parcel number is 01834-003-000 and 01834-006-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
All right. Do we have any ex parte communications? Ms. Woodcock?
No.
No, Mr. Long, no? No, none? None, thank you. I'm gonna like write it. Staff.
Everybody has something. I always forget to ask them to read it. So you forget the ex parte, I forget. Every chair has a clerk.
Yes, staff, go
All
ahead.
right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, board members. This subject property we just heard for the plan amendment, this is the rezoning aspect of the process after properties annexed into the city. Again, same property that we're dealing with, so nothing's changed. It was annexed in July. This is the rezoning aspect. The next step after changing the future land use, this is the subject property, changing from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Newberry Agricultural. Our zoning category has an AL instead of an E, so that change is recommended by staff that you would recommend to the City Commission approval. And that's contingent upon the plan amendment CPA 2116 being adopted.
Thank you. With that being said, the applicant's not present, but has had no issues, so go to public comments. All right, hearing none. Did you want to cross-examine yourself? No. Okay. At this point, do we have any questions for staff, board members? No. All right, at this point, you can have a final argument. All right, hearing none. Any deliberations? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion, since I already did ex parte.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-53, LDR 21-24, contingent on approval of CPA 21-16.
Second.
I have a second. Any comments or on the motion? Public comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. All right, number 12. All right. Do we have any ex parte communications, Ms. Woodcock?
No.
Mr. Long? Ms. Baker? I have none. None. All right. We are on, Madam Attorney, if you can read into ordinance 2021-54 CPA 21-17 for the record.
Mr. Chair, this is ordinance number 2021-54 CPA 21-17, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-191 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small scale development amendment procedures established under the small scale amendment provisions in section 163-3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classifications from Alachua County rural agricultural less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres, on certain lands within the corporate limits of City of Newberry, Florida, parcel number 10426.5-007-000, consisting of approximately 6.77 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Staff? Oh, I thought I did ex parte before I did ex parte
Oh,
before.
you were even quicker than,
Yeah, I did ex parte
That's
before she
impressive.
read it to, yeah. Wendy was reminding me to, we're all a team here.
we're a team player here. Okay, so this is the other piece of land that was part of the recent annexation that was done back in July. This is the change to the future land use map, to change it from county agriculture, rural agriculture, to the city agriculture designation. And then the next step after that will be the rezoning. So for changing the future land use map, because it's under 50 acres, it would be a small-scale plan amendment that does not go to the state. This is a 6.77 acres, and the property is requested to change as I just stated. So the location being about 0.32 miles east, I'm getting tired, of Northwest 202nd Street on the north side of West Newberry Road, just west of Pet Paradise. Recommendation of staff is for approval, that you would recommend approval to the City Commission.
Thank you, staff. Applicant agrees with staff, I take it?
Oh, Mr. Fleming was here for the application, but had to leave. He has an early appointment, so he is supportive, of course, of the application.
Okay. All right, do we have any public comment on the application? All right, hearing none. No cross-examination. At this point, I ask the members of the dais, any questions for staff on this one? No, none? All right. And final argument? All right, hearing none. Any deliberations? All right, hearing none, now entertaining a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-54/CPA 2117.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
A second. All right, any comments on the motion on the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes unanimous. And we are to number 13. Ordinance 2021-55, LDR 21-25. Do we have any ex parte communication, Ms. Woodcock?
No.
Long? No, for me. All right, Madam Attorney, can you read it to the ordinance?
This is ordinance number 2021-55, LDR 21-25, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 6.77 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture Zoning District to City of Newberry Agricultural Zoning District on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel number 04265-007-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Staff?
Wendy, you're not going to let Brian do any work tonight? He just gets to sit back there?
She gets to pay me back on October 25th.
That's right. I will be on vacation. He's going to have a lot of items.
15 quasi.
Just about.
Easy, easy.
Yep.
Want to go into an agricultural area or a city area or a county or a city? What's your plan for your?
Agricultural. So this is the application that will change the zoning of the property. Same property that we just discussed. Again, it's the property was recently annexed in July. This is the zoning step, and this is the property that you see on the map, 6.77 acres. changing from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Newberry Agricultural Zoning District. The recommendation of staff is to recommend to the City Commission approval of the rezoning, and that's contingent upon the plan amendment CPA 2117. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. All right, do we have any public comments since the applicant is not present? No public comments, all right. At this point, cross-examination's not happening. All right. Oh, wait, okay, never mind, false alarm. Members of the dais, any questions for staff? None. All right, any final arguments from, none. All right, at this point, I take it we're not gonna deliberate? I mean, unless you wanna deliberate on the last one. No? I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I make a motion that we recommend to the city, I don't know why I can't say that word, City Commission, approval of Ordinance 2021-55/LDR 21-25 contingent upon approval of CPA 21-17.
I got a motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
I got a second from Member Long. Any comments on the motion? Any public comments? Hearing none, can I signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, motion passes unanimous. All right, we are out of quasi-judicial. Moving on to topics from members for discussion. Member Woodcock.
Yes, does anybody else want to go because I'm out?
No, let's just go for it.
Okay, recently I spoke to somebody anyway, when the urgent care center opened down there by the pawn shop, they put up, first of all, they blocked part of the driveway there, that was not very.
With the sign? With the sign? Or?
Well, that sign too, so I'm getting to the sign,
Okay.
please pay attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is important. So, all of a sudden, we have this huge tall sign sitting up there right by the blinking traffic light, and it's flashing neon at night, and they could never get the time right. You never really knew what time it was either. But my concern is, recently we met here, and I met with other city people, and we worked on purchasing new street lamps that didn't glare or that were beautiful, that would fit the whole, what I think, perceive that we're trying to do here. You know, we have Blazers with the old home there, the Mexicans are in an old home, everything in downtown. So, I really, and this is a personal issue, I realize that, but that sign does not fit in Walker Lee's shop over there with the produce stand. It's out of character, totally. And I'm wondering if, not tonight, but if sometime soon, we need a committee, probably, to discuss what do we want. Do we want more neon? I mean, the beauty shop or the new pharmacist, she might want to put up a pole and put a neon sign out. We did have, when Lowell was here, somewhere there must be some records that we went through signage and we looked at stuff, huh? Do you remember?
We have a whole ordinance already.
Well, and that's what Brian explained,
Yeah.
but that ordinance is not covering. It's just saying you can put up any kind of sign you want, I guess. But we don't have no neon signs. But anyway, my whole thing was this, we're getting more and more commercial, and the city is changing, and the east end of town is going to change, and do we need that? I mean, are we going to end up just with neon signs hanging from across the street. I'm just bringing it up as a concern. I'm not expecting any definite movement here on this, but I think that we need to study if this is going to be a zoning, or if we want to adopt through the codes that we already have. Do we need to, or do we want to consider adopting standards for certain signage? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. We don't have to make a decision. I just want you to know it's a concern, personal concern for me.
I think staff has. I see you walking up here, so I figured.
I was just getting ready to answer any questions, but Mr. Chair, to the mayor's report, we do have sign ordinance. A lot of the signage that you see up and down our commercial corridors precedes that sign ordinance and is therefore grandfathered in. And so the way our code is written, until such time as they either replace the sign or just do a certain amount of renovation to the existing structure on the site, they can continue to reface the existing signs. Now, the sign in question, that one actually was granted a variance to go from the allowable 8-foot height to 14 feet because of their proximity to State Road 45. They were concerned that you couldn't see the sign over the trucks and things that would park in the adjacent parking lot. And so they requested that and were granted that by the Planning and Zoning Board and the Board of Adjustment. So that one. I don't
even remember how long they've been, or how long they even managed to stay in business, or how long ago did they come. But I could also say to you, I can find any kind of way or reason that I want my sign bigger or brighter than yours.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I'm happy to report we actually have a couple incidents this year of one of them might have been last year, but of getting into compliance with the existing sign code. The Dollar General store had a sign up on a post that was in excess of what our current sign ordinance would allow. And when they went to redo that sign, we contacted them and said, hey, by the way, if you're going to replace the sign, here's the actual sign ordinance. And so they brought theirs down to within the actual code limits, and so it's a much lower sign. It's just above the ground and probably only about 7 feet tall. Napa, likewise, came in with a request for a big sign up on a pole, and Wendy worked with them. And as you can see, the new Napa sign is now down, more of a monument-style sign, low, like the code requires for the downtown. That's not actually in the commercial or the historic district, but it's in the low-speed commercial district. And so the next step is they're going to remove the other two existing signs, so they only have the one. So we're, over time, that's the thing with the existing signs that were there that are grandfathered. It just takes a lot of time for those to go away. But as they are being replaced, we're kind of catching them and getting them into compliance.
Is that building is being sold, the one I speak of?
The Quick Med?
Whatever.
I know it's for sale. I don't know if they...
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I don't know it's being sold. It's for sale. And would this be an appropriate time to maybe lower it or move it or get rid of it? Or
we could, Mr. Chair, we could definitely look at the
that we could
variance.
work on that?
Yeah, we could definitely look at the variance. And so I don't remember the exact details of the variance because it was a couple of years back, but we could see what the allowance was, whether it followed with the current owner, or whether it. And the other thing too is once a non-conforming use has been beyond 12 months, then you have the opportunity to make the correction at that point.
Could we do that?
Could you definitely look into it.
Could you please?
But, Mr. Chair, we should be clear, the variance was only given for the height, not the neon.
Big,
because
and the
we
neon,
only.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I think the neon is what I'm more concerned about.
That's what it sounded like.
As we grow and develop and we move out to the new fence company or the whatever, and they all want flashing lights so that we see them. I'm just saying that this is something that we need to be aware of.
Mr. Chair, our current sign ordinance does not allow for flashing. And so if there was anything flashing, that would have been in violation. We could have addressed it through codes. It does allow for the changeable text signs, but the text is only allowed to change once per minute, so it's not this constant barrage of changing and distraction. We didn't want it to be distractive to the drivers going by. I want them to be able to read it, readily read it, and acknowledge, understand the message and go on without constantly seeing a nuance. So there was that. But it is a bright sign. I mean, there's no question. And so,
and I'm just going to restate once again that maybe this is the ideal opportunity for that particular sign or the pole, the whole thing.
I do remember that
this would be a good time to do away with that and start all over with the new owners of the company.
Mr. Chair, I will point out, I do remember as the mayor pointed out, the only variance was for the height. The actual sign itself and the changeable message board that was on it were in compliance with our current code. So if we were going to address that, we would need to make changes to the code to address that.
And Mr. Chair, if you remember, they put the sign up in accordance with the code on the ground, and that irritated especially some of the business owners right around there even more than, so that's when they came back and we said, okay, well, if it's going to be there, but we looked at putting it behind and getting it up. We looked at all kinds of things, and periodically we talk about the sign ordinance. I'll just tell you, as you know, there are very few things that get business owners as enraged as sign regulations. They get really hot. It's tough. That's their walk by traffic. That's they put a lot of stock in making sure that people can see their sign. And I've talked to folks, the owner of Tractor Supply in Jonesville, who is constantly, hadn't happened yet, but constantly telling me they're on the verge of going out of business because no one knows they're back there, because they can't, well, their sign is on the ground. Nobody can get to them. You can't see their sign. It's very difficult. I've made that suggestion,
I have a question for City on that. If the sign that the storage facility has also has an LED sign, and it's in the middle, it's when you're driving and it's completely dark on Newberry Road, you can see it, but it's not anywhere near as intense as what Board Member Woodcox is talking about. Is there anything in code that we can fluctuate to make it like more appealing to that, or?
Mr. Chair, to my knowledge, there's nothing in the code that specifies the brightness. It specifies the how fast it can change, the message can change, and whether it says it can't be flashing and that kind of thing. But I don't
because I gotta say the storage one is very subtle when you're going by. It doesn't blind you. I mean, I drive sometimes late at night from Jonesville.
The church's sign is like that too.
Yeah.
Give you information.
Right, they're very subtle. They're not. I agree with you on it. And with that being said, with the new owners, are they going to be grandfathered in?
That's what I have to, Mr. Chair, that's what I have to check and see what the terms of the variance were. I just don't remember.
But just I'll swear I promise. Is there any chance or any way, I don't even know who would be in charge of doing it, maybe Jenny, could somebody just go in there with a chainsaw and cut that sucker off right to the lot and all and be done? I mean,
somebody tried to take that
probably about $25,000 sign, so I don't know that we want to do that. Yeah. Brian, just to piggyback on this, and I promise this will be my last comment on this topic, but we've been talking about, and I can't quite remember the phraseology, it came up when we were looking at the RV parks and passing something about the light pollution. There was an ordinance we could pass the light pollution, and we were thinking about it for the RV park, but maybe there's an element of that we can bring to signs, because then that would speak to brightness and those kinds of things. I'm not sure if we can merge those two.
We could look for best practices in the industry, find out what the reasonable maximum lumen level would be,
right,
and add that to the sign code.
Okay, there you go. That's what I was looking for, the maximum lumen level. Or something to help with that. All right. Do we have any other topics for discussions from the board? No, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. welcome aboard.
Yes, it was an experience today.
We're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
You made a nice partner, but he did not share his candy.
Ooh.
You can have it all.
Now.
Mr. Chair, I have, if no one else has any comments.
Do you have any? Go ahead.
I just have a couple of announcements, dates to put on. Homecoming has been rescheduled for November 5th in the city of Newberry. So Panther Prowl, Parade, halftime show, all that's back on the ticket. We're just going to hit the reset button. We're going to start all over, and we're going to have a great time. That's November 5th. The parade will be around 3 o'clock, so we got to wait for the buses to clear out. December 4th at Dudley Farm, we're going to have a celebration to unveil the National Historic Landmark designation plaque. So that's going to coincide with their Cane Day Festival, which is December 4th. I want to say the plaque ceremony is on schedule for 10 a.m. So I think they open up the Cane Day at like 9. The plaque ceremony is at 10. And then I wanted to say welcome to Board Member Long as well. And just also say that I know that quasi-judicial sometimes feel tedious, and we wonder why are we going through this for some of these things that seem like they not a lot of questions. We're changing zoning and all this kind of stuff, but that procedure that we read and we follow protects the city, and it makes sure that everybody in the audience has a chance. So it may sound kind of silly to have the chair saying, do you have final arguments, when it's the same applicant, but when there's 60 people in here that are 30 people are mad about one thing and the other 30 are mad about the exact opposite, and you got attorneys in the room, it's that procedure there that makes sure we hit all of those points. And so we practice the way that we play in the game, so whether it's an easy, sort of simple, non-controversial, or whether it's a controversial, we follow that. And so that's why we stick to the script, and we make sure that we hit all those points, because there will come a time where we're faced with people who are very passionate about the issue in front of us and have good points and arguments to make on both sides, and we have to navigate that. And finally, good job, Chair, on navigating 13 quasi-judicials in one night. Now you're not a rookie quasi-judicial anymore, you got them down, right? Well, all in one night. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. The only comment I have, I want everybody to pay attention to this. This is kind of important here. We have a very, very big issue in the city, and it's we created the Opioid Task Force. And October 23rd, we are finally having our kickoff event because COVID had stopped us from having that event. Alachua County is number 2 in overdoses of opioid abuse. And the city has created a task force to tackle this head on. And let me just be on the record here, it is not to fight the addiction, it's for preventative. So what we're doing is we're going to the elementary schools and really trying to get rad kids in there. So with that being said, October 23rd is our kickoff event at Berry Park. I would love to have everybody there. It's a family event. We're gonna have food. We're gonna have Spacewalk is gonna have their bounce houses. 2911 is gonna provide a great barbecue for sale. And we're gonna have different auction items, raffle items. The events are gonna start between 1 and 3, but we're trying to see if we coincide with the farmer's market a little bit earlier. That way, we can have more people there with different vendors showing up. But the main event will happen starting at 1 o'clock, October 23rd. And like I said, it's a family event. It's great to put the awareness out there. And our motto is from silence to solutions, because we gotta stop keeping this quiet. We gotta talk about it. So I would appreciate if this dais, we can have people show up. I'm putting to the test our dais in the commission, and I challenge them, and I challenge them now on record, to see all of them show up on October 23rd to fight this pandemic.
You'll have that out, like, on your page.
Yeah, I'm promoting it all through Facebook. Yeah. Yep. So please, come out. It'll be a great event. And really, this is really for the kids. So, with that, I want to welcome again, Member Long. It's great to have you. Sorry that Gavin couldn't be here to be a full diet, but we'll be all together sooner than later. Attorney, do we have any comments from you guys? To the city? Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I had been putting together some numbers for the city manager for our end-of-year roundup, and I just wanted to point out, if y'all feel like you've been busy, you have been. In 2020, we processed 2 comprehensive plan amendments. In 2021, we've processed 17. Some of those started in 2020, but they were completed in 2017, but went from 2 to 17. Land development regulation amendments, we had 9 last year. This year, so far, we've done 25. And so just kind of a little bit of a gauge of just how busy things have been. We appreciate you guys' patience with all of that and your service for to sit through all of that and work through all of that. And just if it felt like this was a much busier year for the Planning and Zoning Board, you're right, it was. It's not why we're paying you, but it is a busier year.
Is it too late to ask for a raise?
Beg your pardon?
Is it too early to start asking for a raise?
I don't know what the word is, because I always word things really differently. What is it when you get back pay? What is that word?
Oh, retroactive.
Boy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Check it out, right?
all I can say is the commission giveth and the commission can take it away. So that's a policy decision. It's over my pay grade. I don't think, her mic went out, didn't I? I didn't hear anything.
You're all this too. We appreciate you. You do
Thank
a
you.
good job. I mean, and I would really appreciate that I can call and ask a question, and people are nice about it. They don't like it or laugh when I leave, but at least it's not in my face. Thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you for that too. We appreciate it.
All right. Is that?
I just want to piggyback on this. You know, sometimes I hear complaints about how slow it is to get something out, and I think people don't realize exactly all that we're asking our little red schoolhouse to do these days. I hear a lot of people sharing concerns about the speed of growth and all that kind of stuff. Everything is already, all those procedures are there, and we've got, you know, our little team over there trying to handle all of this flood that's coming. And I think they're doing, and we're trying to work on that and get them some help over there, and hopefully that's going to alleviate some of that stress on them. And Miss Wendy will have somebody to share some of these quasi-judicial. They'll flip a coin and see who goes up to the mic. But thank you for sharing that kind of information, Brian. I think it's just worthwhile to keep reiterating just how much you guys are getting done in that office. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one more thing I want to remind you. After you did the opioid reminder, this reminded me that the 3 boys, the 3 Ds, have opened at Casey's Barbecue. I don't know street numbers. What's the street number? You go to Dollar General and take a look.
252nd, yeah. 252nd.
Go down 2 blocks.
Go down 252nd. Yep.
That's it. And they, Friday and Saturday, they told me they're gonna cook a fish on Friday night. I don't know if that was the story I got, but I can really, really, really assure you that the ribs are really good. And they're buying sauce from Joy, so it's the old sauce, the sauce we all grew up drinking, so. It's really good sauce, people.
Do you get 2 pieces of bread in with your rib order? Okay.
2 pieces of white bread
Yep.
and they'll dump the sauce.
Dump the sauce right on top, yeah.
Right.
They also have good brisket.
Yes, they do, and
Well.
sliced or pulled. You know, everybody anymore, you only get pulled pork, I don't count that for barbecue, but sliced pork, and the 2 pieces of white bread and sliced pork, and you dump the stuff on that, and you got it. French fries, coleslaw, go down on Friday or Saturday night and help my boys
You're gonna
out.
get me all hungry, get my mouth all watering, and I gotta wait till
Jordan,
Friday.
you got those ribs, I'm not kidding you.
So with that being said, before we close out, a special thanks to Mayor Marlowe and everything that happened this past week at Newberry High School and Oakview. It was pretty tense for all of us, parents, families, and city. So thank you for being a teacher and having to deal with that. I want to thank our SROs, our deputies, our sheriff, especially Chief Hamilton, for, handling the situation and dealing with it so professionally and putting us at ease as much as you can put somebody at ease. So I want to make sure that our thanks go out to everybody that handled the bomb threats and shooting. So thank you guys. With that being said, meetings adjourned.